Hi, everyone. I hope you are doing well. We are getting so close to Thanksgiving break and wrapping up the course. So should be a good week, and hopefully you'll have some time off to rest and get caught up with everything. So today I wanted to come on and talk to you since we are getting so close to the end. I'm going to go over grades so far and the remaining assignments so you can check in with where you're at and what you still need to do. Then spend the most of the time talking about the research proposal. I've given feedback on all of them that I've received, so wanted to talk to you about next steps and some of the biggest things that I'm seeing as you work towards that final paper, and then leave you with the checklist for the week. Already week 13, so let's get into it. So firstly, remaining assignments. So far, there are 66 points possible. I haven't included the grades for Perusal 12 yet, so if you have that, that would not be included in here. So you can check your grades to see where you are so far. So these 66 points include 10 points for the city training, 10 points for the midterm, 10 points for the first article critique, and then points for the perusal so far. So you have your introduction and then perusals 1 through 11. So that's 12 times 3. So that's 36 points for participation. So that's where we're at so far. So what we have left, we have another article critique, number 2, that we'll be working on this week and next week. That's 10 points over a qualitative article. So now that you have the flow, the article critique, you know what to expect. So that assignment should be, I think it'll be enjoyable because the qualitative articles that you all selected are really interesting, and then it will give you a chance to really apply everything that we've been learning so far. So that's the next assignment, that's 10 points. Then of course we have the research proposal paper that is worth 10 points. And then you are also going to do a video presentation explaining your proposal and what you included in there. That's 4 points. So for most of you, you've already kind of knocked off most of these things. So you're getting closer. And then of course we have the final exam, which is another 10 points. And it's going to be the same format as the midterm with some multiple choice questions and some short answer questions. Most students find that the final exam is a little easier for them than the midterm. So of course, there'll be a review perusal, a review lecture, and a review Zoom to make sure that you feel prepared for that. So that is what is coming up. Again, if you can check and see where you are, the max points that you should see in iCollege right now is 66 points. We have 34 points remaining. Now, a lot of you have been seeing the participation points in iCollege saying score dropped. That's because I have your grade set up to drop to just take the 12 highest participation points. So there's 15 opportunities, the course introduction that we did the first week, plus there will be 14 total perusals that you can each earn a max of 3 points for, and I'm taking the 12 highest. So some of you have already maxed out. That's great. Some of you can use this week 13 and 14 to try to get 3 extra points and make up for a lower perusal score that you had at the beginning of the semester. And I do encourage you, even if you already have maxed out your participation points, do watch the lecture videos, at least in the perusal, just to make sure that you're getting the content, even if you don't need those points for your participation, at least watch the lecture videos. So that is where we are with grades. Please email me if you have any questions, or if I've made any errors, please let me know so I can fix that for you. Okay, so research proposal paper. So like I've explained, this is kind of the big assignment we've been working on all semester. So every week with the readings and in the lectures, I've tried to connect what you're reading to this project. You've also submitted several ungraded check-ins. So here is what is left for that assignment. It's going to be a paper and then also a video presentation. So the final paper is due November 26th. So this will be after you have a week break for Thanksgiving. So hopefully you'll have time there to relax, spend time with family, and then get caught up on any schoolwork. So you'll need to finalize your design. So I took a look during this ungraded check-in at what you had submitted. So you need to go ahead and finalize that. If I gave you any corrections, fix that, and then fill in any missing components, maybe instruments, maybe data collection procedures, methods for participants, fix that and add that in to finalize that. Then you will write the data analysis methods. A few of you already did that, so that's great. I gave you feedback, but most of you have not yet done that. So that is your next step. So we have gone over methods for analyzing quantitative data, and we just finished going over methods for analyzing qualitative and mixed methods. So you will go ahead and write your proposed methods for data analysis. Like I've been explaining, there's a lot of different methods all within your research design. So you have your overarching research design that is either quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods. Then within that, you have many different methods. You have methods for selecting or sampling participants, you have methods for collecting your data, and you have methods for analyzing your data. So you'll also finish writing your introduction. I gave you feedback on the references that you submitted. You will apply those and write that together into several paragraphs, including a summary of the literature. The readings that we are doing this week in perusal and from chapter 21 will help you with that portion. So after you have finished writing your research proposal paper, you'll turn that in, and then a few days later, you will record a video, just like how I'm doing right now, where you will go over your research proposal. So in this will include all the same information that you've included in your paper. It's very short, just 3 to 5 minutes. The purpose of this is to give you practice, and so I can see that you're able to talk about educational research. So in this, you'll talk about your research issue, your research questions, what your research design is, and how you will be analyzing your data. So it is nothing new, nothing additional to what you're including in your paper, but just in a presentation format. And it is okay if you want to do voiceover, if you create some slides. If you don't want to include the video how I do, you can do voiceover. And I've had students use many different mediums for this. I use Zoom to record mine. Some students use Canva, other students use Google Slide and record in there. However you do that is okay, and that will be uploaded to iCollege as well. So I mentioned that the data analysis is the next step. So this is from the template. So in the template, you can, after you finish writing it up, delete this portion in brackets that's explaining for you what to do. So within here, you are going to talk about the methods to analyze the data. So it's going to be different if it is based on whatever design and methods you have. So you'll need to connect it to what you wrote in the methods section. So if you are using quantitative, you will discuss the statistical analysis that you will use. Now, remember, in quantitative analysis, you will have descriptive statistics, but you also must have inferential statistics. The purpose of quantitative research is to test hypotheses, and it is the inferential statistics that allows you to do so. So to help you with this, you will talk about your independent and your dependent variables, describe what they are, think about whether or not they're categorical or numerical, and then check the text to see what inferential statistics is most appropriate for what you're doing. It might be regressions, might be multiple regressions, it might be a t-test, might be ANOVA. So based on whatever type of variables you're using, that will correlate and correspond with the data sources that you've selected, and then how you will analyze the data. Also discuss potential extraneous variables and how you'll deal with confounding variables. You might use statistical control, you might use matching, check back to the text, to everything that we've read about, to talk about your methods that you'll use to control. Now, I also want you to, of course, you won't know for sure, this is future tense, this is still a proposal, so it's in the hypothetical stage. You won't know what the confounding variables will be, but I do want you to talk about what they could be. For instance, they might be socioeconomic status, they might be the teacher. So talk about what they could be. That is for quantitative. Now, qualitative, you will discuss the particular coding methods that you will use. Again, look into the text for some ideas about particular methods and talk about why they are appropriate. And then also you can talk about limitations of the study. It's really important that researchers talk about the scope. The study is aimed at evaluating this particular phenomenon, but there are limitations, and so you can talk about that. Mixed methods, you need to talk about both the quantitative portion, including what I just described before, and the qualitative portion, and then how you will analyze the interaction. And the text had a lot of details about that component in mixed methods and how you will analyze data with mixed methods. Now, this is super important. In the data analysis section, you also need to talk about the methods that you will use to ensure reliability and validity. So these are major concepts that we covered in the first half of the semester that were on the midterm. So check back to those chapters 7 and 8, about reliability and validity, and go ahead and list out, well, you can also see chapters 18, 19, and 20 as well. These chapters 18, 19, and 20 are for your data analysis methods, but for reliability and validity, you need to look back into chapters 7 and 8 as well to get some ideas for methods to ensure reliability and validity. And it might come back to some of the design choices that you made in the methods, like how you're sampling for participants, how you are assigning participants to groups. So, but make sure that you also mention it there in data analysis. So data analysis is actually 2 parts. And another great way to discuss those measures of reliability and validity is to include a section about ethical considerations and how you will be maintaining your ethical standards. Okay, so those are the next steps. So now I want to talk a little bit about some feedback. I gave everyone feedback who has submitted an ungraded check-in so far. So do check iCollege for your individual feedback, and email me with any questions that you have there. But based on those reviews that I did this past week, I want to give some reminders for everyone that can help everyone. So here's some tips and some common corrections. So the literature review. So for some of you, I recommended that you watch a YouTube video that I created last semester about how to search for relevant articles using the Georgia State database. So I'm also including that link in the announcements for this week. For anyone who wants to go and watch that, it's just a couple minutes, and I show you exactly how to go to the Georgia State Library homepage, go to the database, and give you some tips on how to find relevant articles. Now, this week in perusal, I think that should say perusal 13. So see actually perusal 13 and chapter 21. Am I confused? Okay, I think this is right. See perusal 13, yeah, it is right. See perusal 13 in chapter 1 for APA style to make sure that you are doing your internal citations correctly when you write the summary of relevant research, and then also for your references. And this chapter and this lecture video will also give you some writing tips that you can include in your proposal. The next common correction is the instruments and data sources. I don't think that anybody did this, but this is a required component of the research proposal that you might not realize. So many of you talked about your instruments and data sources that you would use a survey or you would conduct interviews. So when you are doing a survey or an interview, you need to also include your survey questions and your interview protocol. So let me show you in the sample paper. Of course, the sample paper is a great resource for you to be using as you are going through and finalizing your research proposal. So this is mine here, the sample. And again, you can look to see how I phrased and what information I included in each component. So you can see in the instruments and data sources, I give a description of the data sources, newspaper articles, and interviews. I give some description about how the interviews will be conducted. Many of you did a great job with this. And then this is the component that a lot of you, actually everyone, needs to include for both interviews, focus groups, surveys. Interviews will follow a semi-structured interview protocol. And then I said, see appendix for the interview protocol. So this is after my references. You can include this in that section or as an appendix, just make sure you include them. So here are some of the interview questions that I plan to ask my participants. And this is super important really for ethics. So thinking back to the city training and what we learned about IRB, the Institutional Review Board, when you submit a proposal to get approval to do research, they want to see the questions that you're going to be asking. Questions on a survey or questions on an interview protocol. And of course, the semi-structured means that they might change a little bit in the moment. You'll ask a probe or a follow-up, but it's good to have a plan for what those questions will be. So make sure that you include that in your research proposal. The next thing, participants, make sure that you also include the sampling methods that you are going to be using to select your participants. Now, when you are thinking about sample size, for those of you planning a quantitative proposal, you can see the appendix to Chapter 19 for some suggestions on sample size, and you can cite that chapter for how you came up with your number. Speaking of quantitative, for those of you who are doing quantitative design and those of you doing mixed methods, so many of you are, which I think is excellent. I love to see that you are seeing the benefits of both different designs and applying it to your proposal. But for those of you who are doing quantitative, you need to make sure that everyone that I saw is doing a great job collecting quantitative data, either through surveys, through student achievement data. You are doing a great job collecting that numerical data, but in order to turn it from we're not just describing using descriptive statistics, you will have to use inferential statistics. And so keeping that in mind might slightly alter the design that you have chosen or just require a small edit, an extra component. So to help you with this, if you're doing quantitative or mixed methods, make sure that you list out what your independent and dependent variables are. Maybe the independent variable is related to the results on a survey. And then the dependent variable is student achievement data. And so you need to be able to list what those independent and dependent variables are, and those should connect to a data source. Sometimes I didn't include this, but sometimes I see in studies where they have a table. They have the independent variable, what the data source is, the dependent variable or variables, and what the data source is. That's a great way to go about it. And then you can think about, is it a categorical variable or a numerical variable? And then think about how you can use inferential statistics to understand the relationship between those variables. So this will help you, and it might even change what you've decided about your design. It might help you understand that for your participants, you need to have 2 groups, or your research settings, something like that, or your timeline. But for that quantitative and mixed methods design, make sure that you are spelling out your variables and connecting that throughout the proposal, and then also especially in the data analysis. And again, check Chapter 19 for inferential statistics. What would be most appropriate? Is it a t-test and why? Is it a ANOVA and why? Is it regressions and why? And that will connect to the type of variables you have. In your design section, particularly in the data collection procedures, describe details as much as possible. And also for those of you who are proposing some type of intervention, go ahead and describe what that could look like. Of course, it's a proposal, it's hypothetical, but the more you describe, the more I can understand what it is you are imagining and make a more strong and cohesive proposal. Now, writing style. So writing style, we are going to be covering in this week's readings in Perusal 13 and Chapter 21, talks about APA style, which we use in educational research, and not only how to cite references, but some stylistic and some writing choice that you should include. I do want to make sure that you're including your own voice in your research proposals. Make sure that your own point of view experiences is really coming through. So you should be using first person, everyone was, but you should be using first person in these proposals. And feel free to connect anything from your work or your experience into the proposal. So for instance, when you're talking about analyzing data, This is one thing I saw. You're probably not going to use inner rater reliability because you will probably be the only researcher. So make sure that you do a final read through for continuity. Make sure that maybe something you had in a previous draft that you've changed, that you take that out and you put in your own voice as much as possible. I do want to remind you, of course, check the text. On the template, I told you exactly what chapters to look into. So go back into the text. Many of you listed the text as a citation. That's excellent. You should do so to just make sure that this project is to show that you can apply all the concepts. So the text is where you're going to find most of that information. Now in iCollege, there is a rubric that I will be using to grade your research proposal. So I want to go through that with you now. And you should check over it yourself as you are finalizing that research paper. So I am looking at, this is the teacher view, so yours will look a little bit different, but this is the research paper proposal assignment. So here in iCollege, you can see the due date, and then the attachments. I have the template, which everyone is using for the most part, and then the sample research proposal. So that is right here. This is just a sample. Now, I will say with the sample, I did include the ethical considerations, but I should have included more in the data analysis section over reliability and validity. There's a little bit here, but there could be more here. And then this heading I didn't include on the template, but I think you should include it in your paper. So that is the resources here. And then the rubric is right here. So this is the rubric for the research proposal. Let me see, can I make it bigger? Let me just get a different view. So you'll be able to see it in the research proposal paper. I'm going to get a better view. So you can see it. I'm not sure where my Zoom window is right now. Okay, so let me make sure that I am, okay. I think you can see it now. So this is the rubric that I'll be using to grade your research proposal paper. So the introduction is worth 1 point. So for each of them, you can get 1 point, half a point, or 0 points. So 1 point is you executed this well. I can tell that you really understand it. It's well done. Half a point, you have some of the components, but it's either incorrect in a way or you're missing components. 0, it's either totally off or it's missing. The research issue where you're going to discuss 3 to 5 scholarly sources, that's 1 point. Your research question, purpose, and significance, that's 1 point. Your method where you talk about the design, this is where you'll talk about, is it qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods? You'll talk about the subset of that design that you're doing. Is it an interview study? Is it a mixed methods concurrent? Is it qual dominant? Is it non-experimental research? And those of you who I reviewed, you did a great job doing that. There's also a point for the research setting and participants, including sampling and how participants will be recruited. Your methods, data sources and instruments, data collection procedures. The appropriate data sources were chosen. Of course, it should align with your design. You're not choosing a closed-ended survey for a qualitative study. Make sure that you check that. For those of you using surveys or questionnaires, do check chapter 9. That was an optional chapter, but it had details about both a closed-ended survey for quantitative and an open-ended survey for qualitative. Now, this is something that a lot of students miss. This is your description of artifacts. So this is where you would put in your interview protocol, your survey questions. So everyone who submitted a proposal, I gave you feedback if you needed to include this, and that's what I showed you earlier in my appendix where I included the interview questions. So that is a point here on the rubric. Sorry. Yeah. You couldn't see what I was showing you, but you saw that earlier in there. Okay. Then data analysis methods, the appropriate methods were used, including inferential statistics, if you have any quantitative portion, and the particular coding methods for qualitative. Now, this is the validity and trustworthiness. Remember, this is another component of the data analysis, not only the analysis methods, but the methods to establish validity and trustworthiness. That's one point. And then a point for your APA style and references, and it's a total of 10 points. So check that rubric when you are finalizing your paper, your research proposal paper. So that's everything that I can think of to help you with your research proposal. If you want to check back that video that I'm listing on relevant articles, also has details about the research proposal paper. If you want to look back to any of the YouTube videos, feel free to do that. And of course, the sample, the text, but everyone that I've seen so far is on a great start. So keep on pushing. You have a couple more weeks to finish that up. And then of course, the video presentation, you're just talking about what you included, short, 3 to 5 minutes. So that is it. So for this week, by Sunday, you just have one chapter to read. It's focused on writing. So that will help you as you're thinking about finishing up your research proposal project. It's chapter 21. It has details about APA style. And there's also a perusal that's 3 points. If you've already maxed out your points, at least just watch the lecture video. We also have an article critique coming up. It's going to be due not this week, but the following Wednesday, the 22nd. So if you haven't signed up for that, please sign up for that. And you will be able to access that in perusal with the link in the announcements this week for those of you who have signed up. So yes, article critique number 2, 10 points, qualitative research. And then we have the research proposal paper, the 26th, the video, the 29th, and then all that's left is the final exam. That will be perusal 14, just reviewing, prepping, studying. And then there's also an optional Zoom discussion over the final exam. I moved it from Thursday to Wednesday to give you a little bit more time. So it's going to be Wednesday, November 29th at 6:30 p.m. if you want to come to that Zoom discussion to help study for the final. And the final exam will be available Monday, November 27th, and it needs to be complete by December 6th. So that is where we are right now. Again, one more week, and then you have a week break for Thanksgiving, hopefully. And you are getting closer and closer. So